Hi, good day to everyone. Today we are going to run through one question in tutorial 7. The question paper is with you ready. You can always refer to your own question paper when I'm trying to discuss with you for the questions in detail. As usual, before we look at the question in detail, I will run through with you for the requirement first. Okay, now let's start with the requirement. For these questions, we look at part A. According to these questions here, question asks you, question mentions that actually someone, Barry's is trying to criticize on the investment appraiser approach. Currently, they are using NPV for the investment appraiser evaluations to assess on whether is it acceptable or not for the project. But seems like Barry have a lot of comments on the NPV approach. So that's why what you need to do later is you have to comment on whatever Barry comments, see whether you agree with Barry or not. So your duty here, question asks you, you need to critically evaluate on Barry comment for the investment appraiser approach. How many marks here? In total, 15 marks. So this is your part A, 15 marks. Then move on to part B here. Part B is ask you to discuss. This one should be easy. You just need to discuss the principle, the benefit, and the problem for matrix structure. Still remember what is matrix structure? For those you forgot what is matrix structure, it's good for you to go back and revise. So for me, part B here is considered as easy. So actually for this discussion here, I won't focus a lot on part B. For me, my focus point is on your part A. I want to show you on how your NPV question, how your payback method, how to discuss on the financial part in your chapter 4, on how your examiner tests you in your coming SBL exam. So for part B here, you can see the marks is very little, only 10 marks. So 10 marks here, roughly how you allocate the marks here. Normally the principle means that the concept, what is matrix structure, roughly 4 marks and 3 marks for the benefit, 3 marks for the problem. As simple as that. So for the matrix structure here, I think for me, part B is more to a textbook answer. It's more on like a theory answer. So now let's move on to part A. Part A is my focus point. Part A, you have to discuss on what Barry criticized. Are you agree with Barry? If you are not agree with Barry, then please correct Barry. Okay, so now let's start from the beginning of the questions. So from the starting of the questions here, first paragraph as usual, question will mention about a little bit of history on the company background. So for this question here, you can see like what I highlighted for all of you here. You can see this company is formed long time ago. And from the 20 years ago, you can roughly imagine the way how they are doing things is a bit more on like old-fashioned already. And all this while, from the first paragraph here, you can see Barry is quite a key person in this company because he's the one to plan, to organize, to run for everything. And the company is is in the industry, something sort of like event planner. Because according to the question mentioned, they are just like major event organizer. And from the second paragraph here, nothing much. What I see is like the question is mainly tell you on the way how they are doing things. And something I can focus is the company is organized on functional line. Functional line, remember, straight away come to your mind is functional is more on like how you organize the structure. They are more on like if you are in charge for a certain area, right, you just need to fully focus on your own area. You are not required to discuss or like communicate with other people which is not in your team because they are organized in the function. In simple means that, like, for example, if you are handling for accounting, then you just need to handle for accounting. You are not required to discuss or like communicate with other people like in marketing or in like, let's say, for example, in productions. Remember, for functional structure, they are the structure organized based on the activity, the functions, the department. So you have to recap back for the functional structure. And that's why just now part B asks you on maybe because of, I'm sure that after this, right, the question will mention about some disaster happen because of the functional structure, because of the current structure is not good. That's why maybe one of the suggestions given is, why not we change to matrix structure? That's why in part B, question asks you to discuss about matrix structure and the pro and cons about matrix structure. Anyway, let's move on. And for this paragraph here, see, this is the one I mentioned just now. Since the question mentioned about functional structure and the question actually asks you to discuss about matrix structure, so that's why I can roughly guess that for sure in the questions, the question will mention something like, for sure something happened, or like the current structure is very messy. That's why they will give you suggestions, or they will ask you for suggestions on can we change to another structure or not. That's why after you practice a few times for the exam question, right, you found that actually roughly the case study, the background of the story is different. But after you practice a few times, you found that actually the way how they set for the questions, right, actually is quite similar. That's why you can see after I practice a few times, right, actually I'm not only practice for a few times, it's many times. So after I practice many times for the question, right, I found that it's like more or less the same already. The way how they ask you, right, I can roughly guess by looking at the requirement. I know that roughly in the story, what kind of things that they want to mention already. So you can see, like, for example, in this paragraph, they try to mention about because of the functional structure, right, increase the frictions between the department. So in simple means that between the department, actually dispute happened, disagreement happened. And those are highlighted in the green color for you here. What you can see is like telling you that the limitations or the problem of functional structure make a lot of, like, between the department, they are fighting among each other. Why? Because it's like if you arrange them based on functions, right, they will just care about their own function. So let's say, for example, if I'm finance department, I will just care about finance. So whatever happened in the marketing department, right, is totally not relevant to me at all. So this is one of the limitations on functional structure. Functional structure, I won't say that it's totally not good, but sometimes it will create a lot of this kind of issues because you give the so-called like the worker the impression that we just need to care for our own. That's why at the end of the day, you can see marketing and sales, they are not happy with other department as well. Finance not happy with the other department also. So that's why you can see what I highlighted for you here. Barry still have to go down and go and solve for all these issues. And whatever I highlighted with you for the next paragraph, the one highlighted in orange color, the red color, is actually mentions that all this while, how finance department come out the evaluations for the project, right? Whether they should accept the project or not. Normally, we have to evaluate based on the financial ratio or based on the investment appraisal technique, remember? So based on the information here is all this while finance department agree with MPV technique. So that's why they use MPV technique as a way to choose for the project. So based on figure 1, later on I will show you on figure 1. In the figure 1, they show you on the detail of the calculation on MPV. Between job 1 and job 2. So they try to present to you on this is how they do the selection of the job based on the MPV. So based on figure 1 here, they prefer to choose job 1 instead of job 2. The main reason because of MPV was higher, which I strongly agree. Because MPV, the higher, the better. Remember, this is what we cover in the textbook, remember? For MPV, the higher, the better. MPV positive in simple means that you generate a good profit, remember? So that's why generally, by looking at this paragraph, we agree with it. But whether we agree with figure 1, the way how they do the calculations or not, then we have to look at it later. Remember, I always mention something before. Your examiner won't give you something for free, won't give you something for fun, remember? So since examiner purposely provide you with figure 1, right, for sure, something to do with figure 1 later. But anyway, let's move on to the next paragraph first. So from this paragraph here, you can see Barry start to criticize a lot on MPV method. Why? Because based on finance department, what they choose is job 1. Main reason because of MPV is higher, right? But too bad. If you really look at it, right, at the end of the day, actually job 1 was a disaster. That's why this make Barry start to voice out, start to like fight for his opinion on actually MPV is not good. That's why Barry tell finance department, because of you are choosing the wrong appraisal technique to make this job 1 become a disaster. If you choose the appropriate technique to evaluate, right, suppose we will choose job 2, not job 1. You can see Barry start to put the blame to the finance team. And according to Barry's here, you can see we should use simple payback instead of MPV. And Barry's is so confident mentions that if we really follow simple payback, right, the payback is actually for sure is like much like faster as compared to job 1. And some more, if we are using payback, actually it's good because it's a quick win. In simple means that we can easily get back the money. We should assess based on which job will give you back the money faster. If you can get back the money faster, means that you can smooth out your cash flow. Then it won't be a disaster anymore. So whether you agree with this one or not, we'll look at it later. And the second things bring up by Barry's, this is the first, the payback one is the first. And the second things bring up by Barry's is, because currently how they assess on the MPV, they are using the discount rate of 8%. But Barry say, whoever the person to choose discount rate of 8%, right, should be fired. Wow, so serious. Have to fire them. Okay, why? Because it's like, according to Barry's, right, the inflation is well below for the last 5 years. So we should use the other figure, the lower figure, because the inflation is well below. Since it's below, so we should use those lower discount rate. Cannot be used 8% as the discount rate. So you can see how angry, how mad in for Barry's now. Why? Because you can see that he start to put all the blame, and because of the job 1 is a disaster. Because of they choose the wrong job to go, because of they make up the wrong decisions making. But whatever bring up by Barry's is correct or not, let's move on. Move on to the next. So from this point here, you can see the one Barry's mentioned just now. According to Barry's mention, the one choose 8% as a discount rate should be fired, right? Because inflation is well below 8%. So we should use those lower percentage instead of 8%. 8% is too much. Okay, so maybe because of you choose the wrong discount rate, that's why at the end of the day, job 1 is is a so-called disaster. Okay, so you can see the percentage suggested by Barry's is supposed to be 3 or 4%, which is much lower by 8%. So all the financials, whatever your financial knowledge, everything supposed to be come to your mind now. Okay, so remember, if you got the knowledge on discount factor, right? Tell me on this part first. Tell me, discount rate is the only reflection for inflation only. In simple means, normally, how you set for the discount rate. You set for the discount rate, whether the discount rate is 8%, 9%, 10%, 11%, is just all depends on inflation only. No. For those who are good in finance, okay, you know that actually inflation, I know that normally inflation will affect the discount rate, but inflation is not the only factor will affect the discount rate. Still got interest, remember. So on how many percent suppose we need to use for discount rate, right? Actually, we have to look at inflation, but inflation is not the only factor we have to look at. We still have to look at interest rate also. That's why later on you have to highlight and emphasize, tell Barry, yes, I agree what you mentioned. Inflation is 3 to 4%. But okay, if we change the discount rate like this, in simple means that we just agree that the inflation, normally how you set for discount rate is just purely look at inflation rate itself only. So this is wrong. The concept here is totally wrong, because where is your interest rate? Remember, interest rate should be one of the consideration factor when you set for the discount rate. And some more, for those you are very good with finance, recall back. Actually, I mentioned before the moment when I cover your MPV. If you want to get a better MPV, right? Suppose your discount rate, the higher the better or the lower the better? If you want to get a better MPV, suppose your discount rate is lower. So in this case, if we really follow Barry's suggestions to change to 3 to 4%, right? Suppose your MPV for job 1 will be even better. So what we can see here is why job 1 is a disaster at the end of the day, not because of the 3 or the 3%, the 4%, or the 8%, you get what I mean? Because if just because of the 8% you choose the wrong project, see 8% you choose job 1. If you apply 3 or 4%, right, you will still choose job 1. Why? Because if you change to 3 to 4%, you will get a better MPV for job 1. So your final decision won't change just because of you use the wrong discount factor. So this is something you need to highlight to Barry's. Tell Barry's, yes, I know you are very smart, but don't try to be smart. As a candidate for SBL, remember, you are the leader in future. So maybe some director will try to challenge your view, but the moment when people challenge your view, are you going to just accept like this? No. So definitely, when you try to so-called fight back your own idea, you need to make sure that your knowledge is really up to the level. Otherwise, people will laugh at your idea. You get what I mean? So later on, this is the things that I will highlight to Barry's. Actually, why job 1 is a disaster, right? Actually, we are not sure why job 1 is a disaster at the end of the day, because we choose MPV based on the higher MPV to go, right? Actually, it's nothing wrong with the concept, and it's nothing wrong with the discount rate also. Because if you choose to for example, what Barry's highlighted to all of you here, if we choose to change to 3 or 4%, right, at the end of the day, your MPV will look even better. So if your MPV is look even better, right, I'm sure that you will still choose job 1. So, it won't affect your changes of your decision making here. So why at the end of the day, job 1 is a disaster? I think supposed to be because of other reason, not because of the discount rate here. So this is suppose something you need to highlight to Barry's later. So can you imagine in the exam for SBL, your examiner, even though examiner tests you for calculations, like the paper, like something related to finance, your chapter 4, can you see that your examiner don't want you to compound your calculations ready? Your examiner is more focused on the way how you comment and how you share your knowledge. But definitely you need to know the knowledge on the basic on how to do the calculations. Otherwise, how can you fight back all these kind of things? Remember? Okay, so now let's move on to the next portions. The next one is actually number 3, the one Barry's bring up on IRR. Barry's mentions IRR actually is very useful, which I strongly agree also. Okay, but again, you see the problem now. Barry disagree with MPV, but Barry is agree with IRR. Can you see the problem? For those students, you cannot see the problem. Something wrong with you already. Remember, when you prepare your IRR, recopy your IRR formula. You need the MPV calculation, right? Without MPV, how can you calculate IRR? So this is the issue here. So what you need to do is, for me, in the exam hall, I will tell Barry's, yes, I agree with you. IRR is a very, very good method. Everyone agree with IRR. But the problem is that since you are not agree with MPV, then how can you proceed with IRR calculations? So this is something we need to highlight to the marker. So indirectly means that you are trying to show your marker, hey, I'm not passing I'm not bluffing, I'm answering the question with the so-called the knowledge of finance. And the next thing is, this one is more towards your chapter 5, your project management. Can you see how your examiner can test you one question with just one portion like this, test you for chapter 4 and 5 together already. This one is on your project management. So this is number 4. So Barry saying, intangible benefit of improved staff morale, right, actually appear to be underestimated. So according to Barry mentions, intangible benefits are just as important as tangible benefit. So, since you underestimate the staff morale, you underestimate your intangible benefit, this is something wrong. So, what I will do is, yes, I strongly agree with what Barry's mentioned. Intangible benefits are very, very important. They are equally important as tangible benefit. But again, come on, my dear student, my dear accounting and finance student, you are very sensitive with all these keywords. Suppose some more, you are ACCA candidate. Come on. I'm sure that this statement, when you read through this statement, how you feel? If you tell me that you don't have any feeling, no, please don't tell me about this I'm crying hard here. If you tell me that after I read through this statement, right, I feel like nothing wrong, everything is okay, something wrong with you already. For me, I agree. I strongly agree. Intangible benefit is very important. Like intangible benefit, like for example, to increase the customer satisfactions, to so-called to improve the staff morale, everything, to improve the efficiency. Very, very important. But remember, intangible benefit, is it measurable? Normally, in financial evaluation, since we talk about MPV, financial evaluation, can you put in intangible benefit? Remember, intangible benefit is something you can observe. We can call this as observable benefit, but this is something you cannot measure, something you cannot quantify. So do you think this one can put under your MPV calculation? No, since it's not something in money, something not in money term. So can you put this in your MPV calculation? No, remember, only financial benefit and your financial cost or your quantifiable benefit and quantifiable cost can be in your financial statement. Remember, this is something I highlight to you in your chapter 5. So what you need to do, highlight to Barry's later. Okay, so you can mention, yes, I agree with you. Don't be like, suddenly when you go straight to the answer, straight away criticize Barry lah, not good lah, okay? We criticize in a very professional way. We just mention, yes, I agree with you. Intangible benefit is very important. But however, in your financial evaluations on acceptability of a project, right? Suppose we are not required to look at observable benefit because intangible benefit is observable benefit. Something cannot be measured, something cannot be quantifiable. It's just like, why it's not quantifiable? Because remember, staff morale, how you measure? Whether the staff is motivated or not motivated, can you use a ruler to measure? No, right? And can you measure by using money? Like worth like 20 ringgit, 30 ringgit, 40 ringgit? Can or not? Cannot, okay? So that's why there's no way for us to measure. So normally in the financial evaluation, we won't put all this in. The main reason, I know that all this will contribute to the future success of the company, but however, all this figure is like something cannot be quantifiable. So that's why there's no way for you to go and measure. But again, this is still one of our objective because we know that all these things will contribute towards so-called like the future benefit for the company. And the last point bring up by Barry's now. Number 5 here. Okay, number 5 here is, suppose, according to Barry's, we should perform benefit realization analysis at the end of the feasible study. After I read through this statement, right, I can fully understand Barry's. I know that benefit realization analysis, your post-project review and post-implementation review is something very, very important. It's a step, it's a so-called like a level which we should go for it. But however, tell me, benefit realizations analysis, suppose the post-implementation review and the post-project review supposed to be after the event or before the event. I'm sure that all of you is going to tell me, yes, it's important, but it's after the event, remember? Okay, after the event. But, okay, try to understand this paragraph here. Your benefit realizations supposed to be at the end of the feasible study. This is according to Barry's. Excuse me, come on, my dear student, come on. Feasible study, suppose, should be before the event or after the event. Feasible study, remember, your feasibility study should be before the event. Can you see a conflict here already? So all these point here, later on, that's why you tell me that I don't have point to like discuss already, or I feel like nothing for me to discuss, or because according to the questions here, you can see your question here, part A, question asks you need to critically evaluate on what Barry's comments. 15 marks, a lot of students tell me, what can I comment? 15 marks, a lot, Actually, honestly speaking, if you roughly share through, see how many things you need to comment. The first thing is on the payback. The second is on discount rate, IRR, and intangible benefit, number 4. And this is number 5. Altogether 5 portion you have to discuss. 15 divided with 5 in simple means that one portion roughly 3 marks. Actually, suppose you are not going to tell me you have nothing to comment. Suppose what you need to tell me is you have too many things to comment until like you don't have enough time. This is more normal, I think. This is more logic. Because 3 marks for me, actually, I can be like easily over elaborate. Okay, so now see, after they come back here, Basically, for 2, 3, 4, 5, we can easily comment like this. But for number 1 here, regarding the payback, right? Actually, I agree with Barry also. Payback is one of the another alternative technique we can use to measure on how fast we can take back the capital, which is a very good method also for investment appraisal. But however, according to Barry mentioned, if we change the method to payback, right, then our decisions won't be job 1 anymore. Our decision will be job 2, suppose. Okay, so since Barry mentioned like this, right, we have to do a little bit of calculation on payback now. You can try now. Try. We assume that the cash flow is correct. We don't want to do any correction first. We assume that the cash flow is correct. Look at job 1 cash flow. All the cash flow is given already. No need to calculate anymore. This is the cash flow. This is the cash flow. Okay, so we assume that all these figures correct. Okay, you can try now. Take the negative 110, okay, and then plus the 50, come back 50, and then come back 15, come back 40, come back 60. So try to calculate the payback here. I don't want to disclose the answer here. You try to calculate. Okay, try to calculate the payback period. And compare to job 2 now. Come to job 2. Same as job 2 here. Take the negative 90, compare with 40, 15, 30, 25, and try to calculate the payback. Tell me, which one, if you choose based on payback, right? Suppose you need to choose the shorter, the better. The faster for you to take back the money, the better, remember? So, if you choose based on payback, suppose you are going to choose job 1 or job 2. I'm not required to come out the calculation already. If I remember, but I can remember the answer. Okay, so if you come out the payback and choose, right, payback period and choose, suppose you will still choose job 1. Am I right? Try. Suppose lah. Job 1 should be still shorter compared to job 2. So what I'm trying to highlight to the marker is, in the exam hall, remember, I will try to continue everything based on the payback period and based on the cash flow given, and I will try to show to Barry's, if I choose based on payback period, right, actually my final decision still the same. I will choose the shorter payback period. That's why I will still prefer to go for job 1. So what I'm trying to highlight to Barry's here is on the first criticism from Barry's mentions that if I choose based on payback, actually the final outcome will be different. Suppose we are going to choose job 2. So to prove to Barry's that this is something wrong. Because if we really choose based on payback, right, suppose should be still job 1. But however, what I will prove to Barry's now is, you cannot avoid Barry's problem, because you can see Barry's is very desperate already. Barry's is very sad already because of job 1 is a disaster. So what I will prove to Barry's is, whatever you comment here is just because of you are too sad, you are too desperate. That's why you cannot come out a very solid you cannot go and find out what's wrong with overall the situations here. So for me, if you really go and analyze, right, actually nothing wrong with MPV, nothing wrong with the discount rate, nothing wrong with even you change to payback, the outcome will be still the same. But something you found out now is, actually, if you really run through in detail for the figure 1 here, the MPV provided, this is job 1. Okay, job 1. Job 1, and you can see the cost involved is hardware cost, software cost, maintenance cost. So in terms of total cost here, I have no issue. I think it's like everything is justifiable. Okay, but for the benefit here, see, staff saving, yes, I agree with you lah. Staff saving means that if you really go for the improvement, then at the end of the day, you can save something for the staff. So yes, I agree. So this is something quantifiable, something justifiable. And contractor saving, yes, I agree. But the last 2 here, see, the benefit here, right, actually you are trying to come out, the benefit is after you go for the project, after you choose for job 1, right, it will help you to get a better information, and it will help you to improve your staff morale. These 2, yes, I agree that this is under intangible benefit, but again, this is intangible. Like what I mentioned just now, remember, intangible benefit is something so-called observable. You can feel it, but you cannot see it. It's not something tangible. Suppose it cannot appear in your MPV table. So suppose you should remove this figure, this figure, this figure from your MPV calculations. So the things make you to choose the wrong project, wrong job, right? Actually, it's not because of MPV. No problem with MPV technique. It's because of you insert too much of the informations. The benefit portion, right, you are overestimate your benefit. So what you need to do now is, suppose you have to revise your MPV. And we will come back in the next video. I will show you on how to revise the MPV. See you later.